Hello, it's Karen Berniston here with my monthly designer challenge video. The theme this month is letter, and I am doing a literal interpretation. This would be a miss you card that I would send in the mail like a letter. I'll be using our arch pop-up and balloon dies to create a hungry caterpillar, and the inside greeting says, "I'll bring the snacks." The main dies that I used on the project are the arch pop-up, and then you need a balloon die. So I used party balloons and balloon collage add-ons. It made my balloon cutting faster and I had more sizes, but you could certainly do it with one or the other. For greetings, I used word set 14 hugs and then our clear stamp set called Birthday Magic. And then these I would classify as my shape hunting dies, meaning I went to my stash and I found some dies to do the things I needed to do. And you could shop your stash as well. So I needed a label to cut out my inside greeting. I needed something to use for antenna, so I used the moose antler from Animal Add-ons 3. I wanted a fishtail banner for the front. Well, WordSet 5 Royalty has a great fishtail banner. I needed an apple for the caterpillar to eat, so I chose that out of our Bookworm set. And then I needed some kind of leaf, so I used the leaf out of our Fun Flowers set. The arch pop-up fits great in an A2 size card, so that's what I chose. So I started with a piece of cardstock, 8.5 inches by 5.5 inches, scored in the middle for folding. And then to that, I added just some pieces of striped paper. So that's a piece of Echo Park paper that I just found in my stash. Now, one thing about the arch pop-up is it has kind of a sweet spot for assembly, and that is 2 inches off the center fold. So I made myself a pencil mark on this left side of the card, 2 inches off the center fold. The arch pop-up includes just 6 dies to make 7 pieces, and I am going to cut those out of a green cardstock. So I'm using my Spellbinders Platinum 6, but you can use any die cutting machine that can accommodate a wafer-thin die. Okay, and then just removing all those pieces out of the dies until I have 1 of each. So a total of 7 pieces to make the arch. Certainly do not have to use a heavyweight cardstock. In some respects, lighter is even better because of the way everything stacks in the closed position. All right, I'm going to start with the arch itself, and that is made using the 2 biggest pieces in the set. Now, those are mirror image pieces to each other, so they are the same except mirror image, but the one on the right has an extra tab, so it has this tapered tab out at the end, and that one folds to the back, and then that's what's used to connect the 2 halves of the arch together. Now, I like glue for this. I have my LINECO neutral pH adhesive in my fine tip bottle. We sell both of those items on our website. So a strong glue on the tab, and then just line up the end of the other arch piece to that fold line, and then get those 2 pieces glued together. And you can see on the back here where that tapered tab is. And then when you fold it in half, if you've done a good job, then everything kind of lines up in that flat position. Okay, then at the other end of the arch pieces are these little feet tabs. All right, so you just find the folds, fold those to the back, and those foot tabs, those are the ones that connect the arch to the card. I'll go ahead and attach the arch to the card. So I'm going to start with the tab that's on the left side of the arch, and I'm going to add my strong adhesive all over that foot tab. So the reason I start with the left is because that's the side that I put the pencil mark on the card, so I need that to help line up where to place the arch. So I flip that over, I put that corner there right on my 2-inch pencil line. And I want the top to be straight, so I can use the top of the card as my edge, or I can use the top of the pattern paper, or I can just eye it if I'm going to put it down lower. But what I want is I want that corner there to be right on my 2-inch mark. Okay, now I'm going to fold the arch in half. That's going to put the other half sitting on top of the first one. And then I'm going to add my glue all over the other foot tab. So right here on top, put all my glue all over that right foot tab. And then I'm going to keep everything in that flat position while I close the card against that exposed adhesive. So just close that right side of the card, give it a press. And then be a little patient. I never am, but be a little patient to let your glue set up for a second before you open it. What I like to do is open it slowly and then even just press those tabs down in that open position as well. So just those 2 pieces does make a working pop-up. You do not have to add the extra platforms. I am for this card, but they are optional. I'm going to start with my 2 lower platforms. So those are the 2 that are on the same die, and they are mirror image pieces. And when you look at them, one side has like a little corner, the other side is smooth. And the rule is the smooth side goes towards the inside of the card. So right where that little, corner is, there is a fold, and then there is a fold for a tapered tab at the bottom. So just 2 folds in that piece, but just make sure that the smooth side is towards the inside of the card. Now to attach that, I'm going to fold in 1/2 of my tab. I hook the other half through the slot and then unfold on the back side, and that is going to lock that platform into position. Now a quick and easy visual check to make sure that you put the smooth side in is to look at the slots. If they are coming together like a pie piece, then you've put that on the correct side. If you put the other one on, it would go through the slot, but then the 2 remaining slots would be parallel. In other words, they wouldn't come together. And so it would be impossible to put the middle platform on. So that's why you have to make sure that you put that smooth side of the lower platform towards the inside of the card. Okay, just doing the same thing on the other side now, getting my lower platform attached through the arch. And then before I attach the middle platform, I'm going to go ahead and get these secured to the card. So what I want to do is I want to raise that platform up into its flat position. So you can see there's some wiggle room there. So I like to just choose a spot. I like to just put my corner right on the edge of the arch. And then I'm going to add my adhesive to that little tab that's out on the end of the lower platform. And then here's where it gets a little fiddly. I've got to start closing the card so that I can lower the arch down and attach that tab to the card. So the card itself has got to be about 90 degrees flat, and then you can see how impatient I am. So give that a second. In fact, maybe just close up the card. Give it a second, maybe even reach in there and press that tab down. So I want to attach that tab when the card is closed, and that way I know I have it in the correct position to be able to open and close with the card. All right, same thing on the right side. So lift it up into its flat position, put the corner right against the edge of the arch, and then I'm going to add my adhesive to the tapered tab. Then I have to hold that in position while I close the card at least to half so that I can lower the arch down and give it a good press, or I can close the entire card and give it a good press. Then I have to be patient to give my glue a second to set up, open it slowly, reach in there and give some good pressure to that tab or even in that open position. Okay, so there are my lower platforms attached to the arch. Once again, I have a working pop-up, so every platform from here is, again, optional. The middle platform, I like to call these the elbow platforms. Just make sure that the elbow is pointed out. Other than that, there's really no up or down to these. There's only one fold in the middle, and all I have to do is hook those through the slot, the next slot up on the arch, and then the slot that was created by my lower platform. And again, just hooking one side in and unfolding to lock them. So the elbow itself, folded in the middle, mountain style, so back to back. Then take those ends, fold in 1/2 of the tab, doesn't matter which one, hook the other side through and unfold. And then the last tab goes through the lower platform. So again, just folding in 1/2. You can fold in both halves if it's easier. I just find it easy enough. If you do a generous fold, you can fold just 1/2 and then get the tab through and then unfold to lock them. So now the elbow platforms, the middle platforms are in place. You can check it, make sure everything folds down flat. And then we just have one platform to go. And again, all of this is optional because you can see that you've got a working pop-up. For the upper bridge platform, you actually fold valley style, meaning you fold towards yourself, especially if you've got like a single-sided cardstock like I do because you want the pretty side forward. And then I'm going to hook those tabs through from the back of the arch. So very important. It wouldn't work if you tried to put it through from the front of the arch. So make sure that you're going from the back of the arch, hooking one side through, and then unfolding to lock. And that is all there is to that assembly. That is now a working arch pop-up, and it is a generic platform ready to decorate for any theme. Okay, and then I just put on an audiobook and started die cutting balloons. And I die cut more than I needed, but at least I would have plenty of choices then. I used both sets, party balloons and balloon collage add-ons. You could certainly make the caterpillar using just one of the sets. I'm using red cardstock for the head of the caterpillar, and for that I used the big stitched balloon out of balloon collage add-ons. Now, if you didn't have balloon collage add-ons, you could use the big balloon out of Party Balloons. It doesn't have stitch marks, but it's, close enough in size that you could get a similar looking caterpillar head using that balloon. All right, and then I'm just going to glue those three together into a blob. Now, I was definitely taking inspiration from the book, The Very Hungry Caterpillar, and for that caterpillar, the eyes are, hand-drawn, so they're kind of rough. And so rather than going shape hunting, I just took my scissors and a scrap of yellow cardstock and kind of cut two little ovally shapes for the background of the eyes, and then two smaller ovally shapes for the interior, which is the darker green. And I'm not sure why I keep fighting picking these things up off the table when I could just use a QuickStik. But okay, so here's the face of the caterpillar, and again, for the mouth, I used a little scrap of black, and I just cut that with scissors. Okay, and then I just have to choose my location for the eyes and the mouth and get those glued on. I think the antennae could have also been just, cut by hand with scissors, but I looked around in my shape dies and I found this antler in Animal Add-ons 3. It was a mirror image set, which means I would have both sides, so I used that for the antenna of the caterpillar. Now, before those things set up, I need to check their location because I used an A2 size card. That doesn't give me a lot of room between the arch and the edge of the card for those antennae in the closed position. If I'd used a larger card, then I would have a little bit more luxurious space. But for this card, I need to be really careful about placement of the antenna so that it stays in the card when the card is closed. So now in this flat position, I can add some adhesive up my lower platform, close the card, and pick up the head of the caterpillar, and I've placed it in a position where it just barely stays in the card when the card is closed. All right, so now comes the fun part of decorating the arch with the different balloons. And so what I want to do, I've chosen 3 different colors of green. So I'm going to essentially do like dark green and like make stripes along the caterpillar. So I'll do a little section of the dark green balloons, then I'll switch to one of the other greens, and so on and so forth. So I sped this up, y'all. It was like 10 minutes of me decorating this arch, kind of making my decisions. Kept putting my head into the shot, so I zoomed in here a little bit to get my head out of the shot. But you can see what I'm doing here is I'm just adding the various balloons to the arch. Now, if you want to add a 3D balloon, the way those work is you just fold up one of the little tabs at the bottom of the balloon, get the top through, slide it in, and then unfold. So real similar to those tabs that are used on the arch. That's what will lock those 2 halves of the 3D balloon together. And the only place that I'm going to use 3D balloons is on these little stub outs right here, the top bridge arch. So what I like to do there is just add a little adhesive. I like to kind of tilt the 3D balloon outward. Again, good idea to give it a second to set up. So let me go in there and pinch that on. Okay, so that way the balloon is more likely to kind of fall open as the card opens, but you do have to check it because it can get hung up on some of the other balloons if you're not careful with your placement. If you find it too frustrating, just don't use the 3D balloons. It'll look just as nice without them. Then I'm just going to continue on decorating with flat balloons, just changing the colors so that it looks striped. And as many or as few balloons as you want to put on the arch, that's completely up to your vision of this card. So, they do stack up in the flat position. So this is a card that probably will need a little bit of extra postage, but I do think it's worth it. Okay, I carried around to the other side, and then I had this spot right here that I wanted to add this round balloon, but it was a little bit too wide. So I just wanted to show this idea of cutting a slot in it that I can just weave around that middle platform so that I can put the balloon that I want in that location and just have it fit around that platform. I like to work on the fronts of my cards on the pattern paper if I'm planning to use pattern paper, and that way I can have my pop-up card open so I'm kind of matching the theme and the style from the inside. So in this case, the Miss You, Let's Get Together, and then some of those snacks for the caterpillar. And then I can just glue my finished card front right to the front of the card. Now I'm going to work on the greeting block. So I'm using Labels Crosshatch for this, and the smaller of the two solid labels in the set, I'm taking a brush marker and actually putting the ink on the back of the die. So this is the flat side of the die, and I'm just using that brush marker to color that in red. Okay, now I'm going to place that down, blade side down, on my cutting pad, and then put my white cardstock over the top and then die cut it. So it's not going to die cut the piece, it's just going to press it into the piece because I have the blade side down. So then I'm going to get a red label-shaped stripe that I can then cut out using the larger crosshatch die from that same set. I'm a fan of the Marvy markers for things like this because they do kind of stay wet and they're great for this type of technique, but you could certainly just try it with a different marker. You know, you could use a Tombow, or maybe just try brushing your ink pad across the back of the die and seeing what effect you get. And I'm just brushing a little green ink around the perimeter. Our Birthday Magic clear stamps has both the Let's Get Together for the front of the card, and then there's a stamp that says, you bring the sparkle and I'll bring the snacks. And I only want the I'll bring the snacks. So I'm just going to use a Post-it note to cover up the top half of that stamp while I ink it up with my black ink pad. So for me, that's just the quickest way to mask off that upper half of the stamp. There's obviously other ways that you could do that, but that to me is just the quickest. And then I take the Post-it note off, and then I can stamp that right down onto my label. I used the Fun Flowers set for the leaves, not only because I love the leaf, but also because the smallest stitch flower in that set makes great teeth marks into that leaf. So after die cutting the leaf, then I just add that small flower so that 3 of the petals are into the leaf a little bit. And then when I die cut it out, it's going to give that illusion of something that has been eating into that leaf. And then I just brush the edges with some green ink. I also did some solid leaves that I just punched a hole in using a hole punch. And then to get the ink around the edges of the hole, I just used my paper piercer, brushed some ink around the paper piercer, and then just got in there and kind of just brushed around the edges. And then I just finished out the interior by gluing down all of the pieces. So the little apples came out of the Bookworm set. I cut them out of red and the leaf part out of green, layered them together, punched a little hole in them. Now with these designer challenge videos, I'm always just trying to spark an idea. So what kind of card would you use your very hungry caterpillar in? Would that be for a child's birthday card, or maybe back to school? Or maybe it's going to be an encouragement card. Maybe you have a friend that's going through some kind of change. You know, caterpillar really can represent that change, and this could be a fun encouragement card as well. Check the description box below this YouTube video for a link to the supplies that I used, as well as to a blog post. And on that blog post, you will find pictures of my card, as well as links to all of the wonderful letter inspiration by our very talented design team. Thanks for watching. If you click on the website link, you'll go to KarenBurniston.com, where you can purchase these dies, as well as find links to our other social media accounts. You can subscribe to this YouTube channel and check out some of my other videos. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.